Hello everyone and welcome to Blaugrana Everything, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to this latest video where I will be giving my brief thoughts on FC Barcelona's January transfer window. I promised that I will take a look back at the transfer window business Barcelona has done. Basically, we're going to go about this in the following way. Right, we're going to look first of all at what Barcelona needed to do going into that winter transfer window. We'll just call it that from now on, and we're also going to look at what Barcelona was able to do in the winter transfer window, and then we'll look at whether or not that was yeah, it was bad or it was good. So for starters, what Barcelona needed to do was to free up the wage bill. Right, we already know they had Coutinho on big wages, Umtiti on big wages, Dembele, Sergio Roberto, and so on and so forth. All those guys on big wages, and they had to get those wages down. The next thing Barcelona needed to do was they needed to reinforce, get a striker, get a defender, a left back in particular. That's something that Alemany himself said that he would be looking for, and renew Ousmane Dembele. I think that was a big part of what was supposed to happen during this window as well. So how did Barcelona do on that front? Well, we can start first of all by talking about who they brought in. Now, we already know about the Dani Alves deal that happened back in December, but he couldn't be registered. He joined as a free agent. Couldn't be registered then because the registration window was not yet open, and the wages that he accepted to take was low enough even without Barcelona having to move on anybody else. But the problem came in when it was time to sign a certain Ferran Torres, who was Barcelona's second signing of January. Now, there was a lot of gymnastics that had to be done here because, of course, like I said, we needed room on the wage bill. Not only that, but you also needed to be mindful of the fact that Barcelona can only spend on a 4-to-1 ratio, meaning on every €4 that they save, they can only spend 1 for acquisitions. So that made the Ferran Torres situation pretty interesting. For Barcelona to spend that 50 million, they would have to make something like 200 million in savings. But looking at how Barcelona decided to structure the deal, paying Manchester City 11 million for each year of Ferran Torres' contract, that means that for this year, Barcelona only had to find 11 million. And the first part of that came from Samuel Umtiti renegotiating and renewing with Barcelona. And so we saw Umtiti take on those lower wages, and the lower wages allowed for Barcelona to free up something like 11 million, which they could then use to pay Manchester City for Ferran Torres. But of course, now there's the second part of that deal, which is Ferran Torres' wages, and that was the part which for the longest time looked like it would be a stumbling block for Barcelona, and they managed to find a solution to that by shipping out Felipe Coutinho. So with Felipe Coutinho out, what that meant is that Barcelona's commitment in as far as Coutinho's wages completely went away. Why? Because Aston Villa agreed to pay 65% of Coutinho's wages, and the 35% which Barcelona were supposed to pay Felipe Coutinho, the player himself decided to just pass it up. So for that, again, we thank you, Coutinho, and a big round of applause on that. And that pretty much set Barcelona up for being able to sign Ferran Torres. Having said that, Barcelona still had quite a bit of work to do. We've only spoken about 2 of the signings they made, mind you, and there were still quite a few players that Barcelona needed to find solutions for. So there are some players, I guess we could say French players like Ajax Collado, who signed for Granada on loan more or less just right at the start of the January window. And of course, there was also backup goalkeeper Iñaki Peña, who on deadline day actually signed for Galatasaray. And hopefully there he's going to get more minutes and maybe come back in the summer after Neto's contract expires. But as things stand, that did mean Barcelona got to at least free up some wage cap space. So from then on, Alemany really was left with just 2 things on his hit list. First one was to get a striker, and the second one was to get a left back. Now the window has already closed, so there's no need to act all mysterious and whatnot. We already know Barcelona were unable to get a left back. Their targets were Tagliafico, Grimaldo, and Gaia, and of the 3, either their teams didn't want to release them like it was for Tagliafico and Grimaldo, or the player decided to stay where he was, like or Jose Raya in this case, who decided to renew with Valencia. With that, we should say already that that's probably the first hole Barcelona had in this transfer market, which was failure to sign a left back. Now, the next tricky thing which came up for Barcelona in January was Dembele's refusal to sign the contract that they had offered him. Now, obviously, by now this is well reported, everybody knows Ousmane Dembele wants 40 million per year and he wants a 20 million signing bonus. Now, Laporta and Alemany were never going to offer him that, and actually they believe that Dembele was asking for that in bad faith, knowing that Barca wouldn't be able to offer it to him, and so he could use that as his escape. So what that meant is that Barcelona then had to look for other options, because Laporta basically said he doesn't sign a new contract, he's never going to play again. And with that in mind, Barcelona went into the market looking for a right winger who would provide them with some of what Ousmane Dembele does, and at this point enter Adama Traore. One thing led to the other, and next thing you know, Barcelona were able to announce the signing of Adama Traore on deadline day. And in addition to that, Barcelona were also able to find a striker, something they so desperately searched for. Their first choice seemed to have been Alvaro Morata, but Atletico Madrid wisely were not interested in strengthening a direct rival for those Champions League places, and they said this isn't going to happen unless Barcelona pay up the money to make it a permanent deal. With all of that being, the case, Barcelona having no money, that deal was scampered. But right on deadline day, Barcelona were able to sign a striker, and it was none other than Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. So that's Barcelona's transfer window in a nutshell. Now, how do Barcelona's signings in January rate? And we'll start with, of course, their first signing, Dani Alves. Now, if I had to rate Dani Alves using the letter graded system, like we do in high school or whatever, I would give the Dani Alves transfer a rating of B+. This would have been an A if Dani Alves was, even 5 years younger, but he is not. And it's going to show at some points, you feel like it was definitely a short-term fix and there's no knowing how long it's going to be here, but it's on very low money and he's going to offer some good experience and good options on the ball. Like we've already seen while he in the few games that he has played, he still does have some qualities that Barcelona can benefit from. But in the wider, the bigger picture, looking at things on that grander scale, I think B+ is as good as I can give a grade for this transfer, just simply because he's still very advanced in years and he doesn't exactly fortify the defense, like his defensive skill set doesn't make Barcelona better, just his offensive skill set. And right now Barcelona need more defensive skill set from a right back, if I was to be honest. Next up, we have the transfer of Ferran Torres. This was by far the biggest deal for Barcelona in this window, and I think up until Dusan Vlahovic to Juventus, this was the biggest deal of the entire January transfer window. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? And for this one, I would definitely give Barcelona an A, stopping just shy of an A+, I should say, because it has more or less, it ticks all the boxes that you want. A player who can contribute to the team now and also in the future, check. A player who is familiar with the way Xavi wants a Barcelona winger to play, check. And of course, a player who is very talented and has great qualities. I'm talking about a player who could play on a Man City or a Bayern Munich or a Liverpool, a top quality player, check. The only thing here which I wouldn't say maybe check is, I would say maybe the valuation. I thought like Manchester City did more or less, make Barcelona pay a bit more than maybe other teams would have paid. Like I don't think Man City themselves would have paid that much money to get Ferran Torres in, right? I mean, just 1 year ago they paid 20 million, was it? But of course now things are different. But considering the fact that the player clearly wanted to leave, I thought that maybe that price could have been a bit lower, something around 40 million maybe. But to be honest, that's kind of being nitpicky, and all things considered, this was a very good deal, so I'm giving it an A. Next up, we have the signing of Adama Traore. Now, this is one which, to be honest, was a bit of a head scratcher for me, because I was kind of torn in two in which direction to go with what kind of transfer this one is. But if we're looking at this strictly from short term and we're looking at it from a player who can provide something different from what Barcelona have normally, and a player who is a bit versatile and can give a bit more, especially defensive cover for Barcelona, then I'm going to say that this is a B, because like I said, he's coming in on very little money. Barcelona aren't stretching themselves to pay his wages, and on top of all of that, he's a player who is familiar with Barcelona, familiar with the system, and a player who will do whatever that his manager asks him to do. And I think Barcelona can stand to benefit from that. The only question, of course, which there is whether or not he can maybe deliver a bit more in the final third, because everything else I think about his game is pretty solid, except for when you come to those final third contributions. So the question is, how can Xavi use what Adama already has? And finally, the last transfer in, it's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and this one as well I am going to give a B, and it's pretty simple why. I'm going to put the good and the bad up here, okay? The good here is that you have someone who is a proven goal scorer, you have someone who is hungry to play, not just for the club but just like to play, and also the other thing is that he's coming in for no money. Free transfer. Barcelona are not paying any transfer fee for him, and his wages as well took a big cut for that, so Barcelona could sign him. So we could throw in a bit of, he looks like he has some kind of passion for the game still. This is someone who still wants to give more. Then of course there's the bad. He's been out of form for like the past 6 months or something. He has been a problem player for the past 4 months as well. So it's not just bad form, but it's been bad attitude. And I would say the last bad is probably, you don't know which Aubameyang is going to turn up here, if it's professional Aubameyang or if it's going to be unprofessional Aubameyang. So that's in the bad. I've listed 7 things, right? 4 are good, 3 are bad. So that's 4 out of 7, which is a percentage of 57%. So we're looking at like a C plus, right? Well, at least the school that I went to. But you know what? I'm going to be generous here. I'm going to say this is a B. Just like the Adama deal, except maybe this time around the quality side of the player isn't in doubt. It's more the attitude and whether or not he will deliver. That's what's in doubt. But you have to think maybe that, you know what, this is still an upgrade to Luke de Jong's situation. Not that I'm throwing shade on Luke de Jong. I did name him player of the month for January. I think you'd still pick Aubameyang to start over Luke de Jong if you had the option, right? Well, that's just about that. Of course, there were exits as well in January, like I mentioned. Iñaki Peña went out, Collado went out, Coutinho went out, and so did Yusuf Demir. He went back to Austria because Barca were too scared to pay 10 million if he played him one more time. So with those ones, I would say that Collado to Granada, that's a B plus. Iñaki Peña to Galatasaray looks like it could be an A. We'll have to wait and see. And then Coutinho to Aston Villa, definitely this is an A, pushing A plus territory. And finally, the deal to take Yusuf Demir back to Rapid Vienna, which I would say maybe, fine, I'll give it a B plus. All right, just because I think financially it was the right decision, but could have just potentially let go of a player who could become special in future. Just wait until he goes to like Dortmund or something, then watch him start balling. Anywho, that's that. This was just supposed to be a quick upload, but I talked too much. Thank you once again for tuning in. You have a great day, and I will see you in the match preview for that game coming up this Sunday. Have a great day, and Forza Barca.